Do you like queer fantasy stories? How about magical realism stories about the world of fairy? If so, stick around because today I'm chatting about just such a book. Hey friends, Roger here, and today I'm chatting about a book entitled Prince of Air and Darkness by M.A. Grant. So I was excited to read this as there aren't a lot of queer fantasy adventure books out there, especially about the fairy courts. So this is the first book in the Darkest Courts series, and the story follows two young men at Mather's School of Magic. There's Phineas Smith, a human who has the ability to tap into the powerful and potentially deadly ley line, giving him pretty much access to unlimited magic. And there's Rourke Lynn, the beautiful Fey and Seelie prince. So the two of them are roommates at school, though they don't get on together all that well. They're kind of arch nemesis, if you will, with both of them attempting to ignore the sexual tension between them. Now, Finn is the only human at the school because of his ley line ability, though in the 6 years of school he's been unable to control his powerful magic. But regardless, both of the fairy courts, the Seelie and the Unseelie, want Finn on their side as civil war between the two courts is brewing. It's also worth mentioning that previous humans who had a connection to the ley line like Finn does didn't live very long, each of them destroyed by the same magic they bonded with. In fact, I do believe that most of them didn't live much past 20 years old. So unless Finn learns to control his power, it will end up destroying him. And if the ley line doesn't get him, it'll be no doubt one of the many creatures who are hunting him. In fact, the story opens to a torture scene with Queen Mab, Rourke's mother, attempting to bring out Finn's magic for her benefit. Now, Rourke is determined to teach Finn how to master his magic, so the two men come together to form sort of an alliance that grows more dangerous as the two of them begin to finally acknowledge their feelings for each other. So the story is told in first-person dual perspective, so we're privy to what's going on in each of their thoughts. You know, often dual point of views like this don't work for me, as I sometimes find it confusing as to who's speaking. But this wasn't the case here, as each character's voice is really quite distinct. The dual point of view here actually added to the story, especially in regards to the romance in which each of them believes that their feelings for the other are unrequited. Speaking of romance, you know, I really enjoyed the tension and the slow burn romance between Finn and Rourke. But then again, I typically enjoy the enemies to lovers / frenemies to lovers trope. I felt that there was a searing chemistry between the two of them, no matter how hard they tried to fight their feelings for the other. And the romance itself felt believable to me, and I enjoyed reading their interactions with each other, which moved from snarky comments to not being able to get enough of each other. And though this is a romance, it isn't an erotic romance. In fact, I don't believe that there were any overly explicit love scenes in the story. Most of them were kind of fade to black, if I remember correctly. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't any heat between the two of them, because there definitely was. I also found the intrigue of the fairy courts quite compelling, though I wish the author had gone into a little bit more detail regarding the animosity between the winter and summer courts. You know, I was exposed to this idea of the winter courts and summer courts a bit when I was reading the Dresden Files series, but I think a little more explanation definitely would have helped. I would have loved to have learned more about the succession in the fairy courts as well, especially how Rourke's brothers fit into the whole scheme of things. So hopefully these will be examined more in depth in future books. But all in all, I loved this book. From start to finish, the story held me in rapt attention. And I felt that the melange of fairy court politics and intrigue, a magic school, and romance worked wonderfully in this story. The two main characters were complex, multi-layered, well fleshed out, and likable. And they have layers and flaws, some not so apparent on first or second inspection, and both grow throughout the story in the way that all good characters should. I also thought the pacing of the story was perfect, and the author creates here an atmosphere of constant tension and unease. The story also ended with happily ever after for our guys, and I really cared about these two making it to that happy ending. The journey that takes them there is really an utterly remarkable read. Now the story includes on a little bit of a cliffhanger with a war between the Seelie and the Unseelie courts on the horizon, which will no doubt be explored in the next book in the series. And I definitely plan on continuing on with this series as I utterly enjoyed it. So that is it for my little chat of the Prince of Air and Darkness. Now, if you liked this video, I'd really appreciate it if you click the like button below, as it helps my channel get noticed by others. And that about does it. I'll talk to you in the next video. Roger and out.